to be a wise man. Education starts from the time a kid's born. All my kids went to mom and me classes. They did preschool. They went to the best schools in LA. I made sure of that. They graduated from Morehouse, Howard, honor student. They didn't do drugs, they didn't do gangs. I killed them. 5 kids that are very successful because I was on their back every day. You can't be an absent parent and expect to have a good kid. The fruit never falls far from the tree. And you think I'm gonna have a kid that's gonna be a dummy? I kill him first.
Well, I can understand.
Let me finish, Bishop. And they're Christians. You know why? My mother was a secretary of church. When I was in a country town, impoverished, I went to church with no shoes on, with a tie. And so I told somebody, I said, you see me coming into church and ain't got no shoes on? I'm going to church. God is so awesome. And all you got to do is just get out of his way and let him take care of you. I don't worry about anything. My mother used to sing a song down by the roadside. She worked 16 hours a day. And it said that I'm going to lay my burden down and worry no more. She told me that she put all of her burdens on God. And when you put your burden, you don't have to worry. I've been in the hospital for pneumonia, heart failure. The doctor came in and told me, after they straightened me out, he said, man, you look like hell. 2 days, I said, I didn't feel like it. I'm sitting up looking at the pretty nurses. He said, I said, God's my father. He's not ready to take me home yet.
You see, at the end of the day,
he's not ready to take me home yet.
I understand.
You know?
Now, let me move on with that.
Okay.
At the end of the day, now just listening to you, I heard 2 sides. I heard one side where you were intense and adamant enough as a parent to want to kill a child who ends up a dummy. Then you, of course, then you move from that to cast all of your cares on the Lord, and he'll take care of it. Now, was the Lord taking care of it through your intensity not to have a dummy in your family? Or was he taking care of it without your input?
God is my navigator, okay? When you're in 747, you got a power, all right? Everybody's passenger. I'm riding. I know that when I get in that plane, it's going to take off, it's going to land, because he's the captain. And I don't worry about anything because I put it in his hand because I know what my father is.
Yes, but understand this in the same light, because the question he is asking is a question that takes us out of the ethereal, the ontological, and the mystical. We do a lot of that in church. But at the end of the day, after the service is over, after the worship is over, how does it express itself in a sociological environment where people are in church, serving and praising God and giving all their burdens and leaving it all to God, but they're still broke, still can't make ends meet, still sleeping in their cars, still homeless? And homeless people and broke people aren't people who don't love God. It's that there is a side to it that we just haven't operated. And that's the side that makes people's lives better from an educational point of view, so an economic point of view, because I was told that no matter how you were born and where you were born, if you follow the right principles and you energetically infuse what God has given you as a talent into your way of life, then you can make it happen. Now let me reverse. There are people who don't have anything to do with God and still have marvelous lives from an earthly point of view, simply because without dealing with God, they have dealt with his principles. Yet on the other hand, we've got a plethora of church people who who deal with God from a spiritual point of view, but don't deal with its principles.
Yes.
So it seems to me that while we are setting it up so we can get to heaven through the spiritual principles, then we ought to operate within the parameters of the earthly principles. To take your point further, here's what God did. After God created the world and put the world in place, he gave man dominion. He gave us dominion. Now, he gave us dominion, and he had to give us dominion simply because we were created in his image and in his likeness. When I look at each one of us, doesn't matter what your color is, when I look at each one of us, I come to the conclusion that we are created in his image and his likeness. Now, if you talk about image for God, remember God, the Father, is an omnipresent spirit, which means he's everywhere. Now, if he's everywhere, what image could he have?
Right.
Jesus is the expressed image of God bodily. You got to include the bodily. So here you've got the Spirit of God, which is everywhere, but if it's going to be manifested or if it's going to become visible in a human environment, then there's got to be a body. So the express image, let us make man in our own image, then Jesus becomes, from a Christian point of view, Jesus becomes the model or the design by which man is made. Now let's go chronographically. Adam is before Jesus, but Jesus is the design that God had in mind. So even though Adam is made, he's made in our image. So the image that God had in mind was Jesus, because he is the express image of God bodily. So if you have a body at all as a man, even as a woman, because created he male and female, but if you have a body as a man, you're in the image of God. Forget the color. Because we are in his image, then he could not let a dog or a cat or a donkey or a bird or a fish have dominion.
Right.
Because he couldn't look into the world and see himself subjected to any other creature.
That's good, sir.
So he gives man dominion. Now I want you to see something very carefully, and I think Unification Church does a great job with this. He gives us dominion, but look at the shape of the world.
Preach.
So let me suggest, hold it, Bishop, hold it, let me handle this for a minute. He looks at the world, he gives us dominion. Where is he now? In the operation of a world that you and I will have to agree is falling apart.
That's right.
Has he interjected his principles around and away from the governance of man? Has he, after he gave us dominion, has God stepped in and overrode the decisions that we have made? Has he? Has he stepped in and decided that I am going to give them free will, but I'm going to abort every decision they make that I'm not pleased with? Hasn't done it, has he? Hasn't done it. You and I have discovered at our ages, or we had to discover at our ages, that it doesn't matter how how mystical you get at church. It doesn't matter how high you get when you're in the Spirit. If you don't follow the principles,
Yes.
and if you and I make decisions out of free will,
Right.
now notice what I'm saying here now. We picked the wrong woman. And here's what we say to God. Now, Lord, if you know this woman was going to treat me like this, why would you let me fall in love with her? We make bad decisions, but we don't want the consequence of the decision. And then we find out that God does not step in and move the consequences of the decisions that we make. Because it's through the error in decision making that we ultimately come to the place where we acknowledge God enough for Him to operate in the next decisions we make. You follow what I'm saying? So I want my bishop and everybody else in a spiritual environment to understand that spirituality has to have a face in a social and in an individual situation. What is the face of a spiritual person? The face is walking in the principles that are not only supernatural, but that are natural. Yes. He gives us dominion of the earth, and He allows us to make decisions. So here's what He said. I want you to be fruitful. I want you to multiply. I want you to replenish and subdue. Because of man's greed, Holy Bishop, because of man's greed, he has multiplied, he's been fruitful, taking the resources that God has given, but he hasn't replenished.
Right. That's good, sir.
He'll root up trees and cut trees down, but he won't plant. He'll dig in the earth and take the oil out and run the oil in places where oil shouldn't be run, because now it's messing with the ecology. So instead of building the earth, he's tilling the earth. Your point is well taken. After we finish shouting and jumping, we need to sit around and say, now, why is my brother here with all of his ideas, with all of his dreams and goals? Why hasn't he gotten it